The world of the Riot MMO is full of amazing characters who all have their own tales to tell. In League we have over 160 champions, all with unique backstories and experiences throughout the world of Runeterra. While some stories are better than others, almost all of them would be interesting to explore as we play through the MMO. However, there's a few characters in particular that really stand out, and their stories will influence the player's experience far greater than the others. I thought I'd share some of the character stories I think will have a profound impact on the player experience in the MMO, as they're really something to get excited about. Let's start with the compadres of crime, Malcolm Graves and Tobias Felix, who these days goes by Twisted Fate. A lot of League players will be excited to explore the story of this pair in-game as we followed their antics for many years and explored their relationship with them. Graves is an outlaw through and through and a wanted man in every city and empire he's visited. Fate, the Card Master, is an infamous swindler and card shark, using innate magic abilities to trick the astute and foolish alike. Graves and Fate have been floating around Bilgewater for most of their lives, and I think they would make for fantastic companions as the player explores Bilgewater. Despite their roguelike charm, Graves and Fate aren't the good guys. They're mercenaries, thieves, and have probably killed their fair share of people throughout their time committing crime. In the short stories and cinematics we've received throughout the years, it seems that causing chaos goes hand in hand with their day job, and they always seem to end up in sticky situations that often end with a bang. Despite this, and their somewhat comedic portrayal in cinematics and short stories, they're damn good at their job. Tobias and Malcolm are the only criminals who have broken into the highly secure Clockwork Vault in Piltover, and they single-handedly orchestrated a war between two rival Noxus houses through some light kidnapping and ransom. However, not everything has always been smooth sailing for the pair. One job would prove too much for them, and Graves would be captured and sent to the Locker, a maximum security prison in the depths of Bilgewater. Although Tobias was able to flee, he would never forget about his partner. Graves, on the other hand, would bide his time in the prison believing that he had been betrayed by his old friend. On a fateful day, the pair would be reunited in a warehouse owned by the pirate captain of Bilgewater, Gangplank. Fate found his way there after being hired by Miss Sarah Fortune to steal a prized weapon from the pirate captain. However, what Fate didn't know is that this was a setup. Graves, having just escaped from the locker, was also on his way to the warehouse to confront his old partner. His tip-off? The same Miss Sarah Fortune that had sent Fate there. A fight broke out between the pair, and due to the explosive nature of many of Bilgewater's warehouses, a huge fire engulfed the docks. Gangplank, informed of the pair's brawl and attempted thievery of his possessions, decided to make the duo pay for what they had done. Captured and tortured, Graves and Fate were set to be publicly executed in front of the whole of Bilgewater as a show of power by Gangplank. Now, something I should add that many people won't know is that this event actually happened in real time in League of Legends. When Gangplank was reworked in late 2015, they were releasing this story in chapters during his release. At launch, Gangplank was the pirate captain of Bilgewater and ruled as a tyrant. Anyway, as it turned out, Miss Fortune had intentionally orchestrated the bust-up between Graves and Fate. She planned to use the fight between the duo to kill Gangplank, and during the public execution of Graves and Fate, Fortune blew up Gangplank's ship, with him and his crew all inside. To build excitement for the lore and the story, Riot made the decision to disable the newly reworked Gangplank in-game, as he was technically dead. Thankfully, Gangplank was enabled a week later, as it turned out he had managed to escape from the ship before disaster, and was just badly wounded. He was re-enabled with a whole new in-game look to signify the updated lore. I loved when this happened, but many rightfully criticised Riot for disabling the champion so soon after his release. What's mad about this is that this decision to disable Gangplank went on to impact the LoL World Championships that year, as many pros didn't get the chance to practice against the character, which led to him warping the draft phase in all the games. Regardless, it was after she'd killed Gangplank that Fortune took over Bilgewater as the pirate captain. Graves and Fate were able to escape in the nick of time from the explosion that decimated the ship and a lot of the slaughter docks. Scared for their lives and wanting to get away from it all, the duo begrudgingly saddled up together once again and took off the Piltover so Graves could replace his lost gun. Unsurprisingly, the perilous pair's antics didn't end there, and once Fate was able to regain the trust of Graves, the destructive duo have been causing havoc all over Runeterra ever since. Fortune's takeover of Bilgewater was almost welcomed. Gangplank was a dictator and a mass murderer. He did not have particular care for anyone in Bilgewater other than himself. This doesn't mean that she faces no resistance to her captaincy of the city. In fact, there's more resistance than ever before. Many of Gangplank's followers still remain after his disappearance, unfortunately struggling to unite all of Bilgewater under her banner. Even more groups are coming out of the shadows to try and challenge her rule, as she's shown that defeating the pirate captain can be done. Although around 5 years in-universe will have passed since the Burning Tides event, when the player will enter Bilgewater, the Burning Tides and the death of Gangplank have created an interesting dynamic within the city, and undoubtedly, tensions will still be quite high in the city when we arrive there as a player in the MMO. After all, Bilgewater isn't a place built on unity, it's one that thrives off the greed and the power of its inhabitants. Graves and Twisted Fate would be perfect characters for the player to explore the dynamic in Bilgewater with. Their history as a duo lies predominantly in Bilgewater, and the current situation in the city is in part thanks to their antics. There's also the fact that they're a neutral player within Bilgewater. They don't have allegiance to any of the gangs, and despite their running with Sarah in the past, they hold a level of respect for the pirate captain. Graves and Fate are here to make money, and also save the world from the ruination when required. Like I said, Bilgewater is in a tumultuous spot. There's inevitably going to be some conflict within the city, but we don't know what the key players in Bilgewater are planning, and Gangplank could return at any minute. I think that exploring this conflict through a neutral perspective would be the best experience for the player. Although Captain Fortune is the good guy in Bilgewater, I feel it would be better to honour the culture of Bilgewater to explore the location without allegiances. This would allow the player to experience the true flavour of Bilgewater and piracy, which is kind of in it for the money. Led by Graves and Fate, the player could go on all sorts of adventures within Bilgewater. Sort out faction wars, hunt sea monsters, settle plots to overthrow the hierarchy, and hunt the black mist that at times threatens the shores, all the while making a bit of coin whilst you're at it. Many of the people who are watching my videos aren't subscribed, so if you're enjoying this video, please consider helping me reach my goal of 1,000 subscribers. Taliyah is one of my favourite characters in the world of Runeterra. The story weaves together the wonders of youthful exploration and inquisitiveness with the tough reality that adulthood can bring, which has only been exacerbated by the powers that she was gifted with. Powerful forces have come to threaten to rule the place that she calls home, and she will do anything to ensure that her people, the Nasaj, are safe from these threats. Taliyah would make an excellent companion to stand against these threats as the player explores Shurima in the MMO. Powerful nomadic mage, Taliyah has the ability to wield the strength of the earth. Forced to leave her tribe in part to protect them, but also to hone her powers, Taliyah undertook a journey to explore Runeterra. On this journey, she would hope to find the one who could teach her ways to use her powers for good, and in order to protect those that she loved. Heading west to Targon, Taliyah first stumbled across the Noxians in northern Shurima. With the promise of a good teacher in a distant land, Taliyah followed the offer of a Noxian officer to travel to Ionia. However, it was once Taliyah was given an ultimatum that she knew the Noxians had no intent to teach her how to use her powers for good. The ultimatum was this: bury a village full of sleeping people or be tossed into the ocean. Taliyah stared at the bay, thinking of all the innocent lives unaware of danger just off in the distance. Of course, Taliyah couldn't accept what she was being tasked to do, so her fate was the ocean. She was able to escape from the depths of the ocean and the fighting that was on the shore. Wandering without a cause and lost, Taliyah made her way to the wintry mountains of Ionia. It was here that she met Yasuo, a master of the wind and the elements in his own right. Taliyah would come to train with him to seek the control of the powers that she had long dreamed of. They would return to Shurima from her journey after hearing of the return of the ascended Emperor Azir, and fearing for the safety of her people. Although planning to find her people, she would come across many in need of help. Soon after her return, she would face the wrath of Xerath and learn of the dynamics between Azir, his descendant Sivir, Nasus, and of course Xerath, who was willing to kill just about anyone to gain status within the continent. On her exploration of Shurima, she would find other Shurimans whose families or homes had been destroyed by the Void, and decided to take them under her wing. Overnight, Taliyah became an unexpected leader of this little ragtag group of nomads, and over time she would come to consider them family. Right now in the lore, Taliyah has discovered the extent of the spread of the Void in the south of Shurima. On a trip to Zulum, which she thought would be a safe haven away from the Void, she found and saved Kaiser, who was on the run from some Void lamplighters. Upon arriving in Zulum, they would find the town already destroyed and infested with Zersai. The Void creatures were led by Rek'Sai. The Void are going to be a key threat in the MMO, and with Taliyah directly dealing with the danger, it makes sense for her to be a key character as the player takes on the enemy that threatens to swallow Runeterra, Taliyah is actually one of the few characters to have aged from her release. In League she's 17 and at the point in her story where she's just finished training with Yasuo. However, right now, in canon, she's actually 24. She's been travelling around Shurima for 7 years, protecting people from Xerath's creations and the creatures of the void, all the while looking for her family and tribe. Her tale is one that centres around the journey that she's been on throughout Runeterra. In a way, her tale embodies the aspect of Runeterra that I love the most, how different places in the world imprint on the characters that experience them. Because of this, it is possible that the player could encounter Taliyah throughout Runeterra. Her story is not too dissimilar to the experience of the player character in the world of the MMO. Like I mentioned earlier, she's already recently been dealing with the void in the south of Shurima. However, I personally think that she would be best served as a gateway into the tale of Azir and Xerath. Similar to Graves and Twisted Fate, Taliyah represents neutrality in Shurima. However, unlike Graves and Twisted Fate, she values the protection and safety of her friends and family, and not power and gold. If anything, Graves and TF are more like Azir and Xerath in this sense, with the pair looking out for themselves and not others. The dichotomy in goals of these two parties shows that neutrality can be polar opposites in different regions of Runeterra, which is another thing that makes the world so unique. I can't wait to meet Taliyah in the MMO, and I hope that we will be able to find her and protect those that she has lost. The tale of Singed is one of the most horrifying stories in all of Runeterra. In comparison to the previous two stories, we know very little about the journey that Singed has been on. Instead, we've come to learn of the atrocities committed by the scientist, and how he poses not only a threat to Xorn and its people, but to the entirety of Runeterra if he is mobilised. In the MMO, I think it is highly likely that we will come face to face with some of the horrors that Singed has created, and his backstory has made him a perfect antagonist to a campaign in Xorn. Singed began his life as a man from Piltover. From an early age he showed immense intellect and heavy fascination for the natural world. He would be taken up by the University of Piltover, but because his research was different from the norm, he was dropped, and all his funding from Piltover stopped. This led Singed to Xorn, a place where he could sell his inventions without policing and research the chemical augmentation that was more accepted in this city. Over time, infamy came to Singed, and he became known as the Mad Chemist, selling his sometimes deadly inventions to whoever was brave enough to get their hands on them. This infamy would reach other regions of Runeterra. During the Noxian invasion of Ionia, it was Singed who hooked the Noxian military up with toxic weapons of mass destruction that decimated the lands. Even years later, the poison still lingers and would burn the skin of any of those who touched the infected land. Across League players, Singed is most well known for turning Warwick from human to beast. Around the time when Warwick was reworked, Riot released the scientific notes from the experiments that the Mad Chemist carried out on the man. The graphic details told us of the contortion of Warwick's limbs, the injection of toxic fluid into his body, and the amputation of the beast's mangled arms whilst he was awake. This reintroduced players to the cursed mind of Singed and his sadistic and psychopathic tendencies. This was only further confirmed in the short story that we received in 2020, The Host, which I'll link in the description below. It's honestly the best short story I think that Riot's ever produced for League, and it's well worth the read. What draws me to Singed as a character I want to explore in the MMO is his depravity. The character has a brilliant mind but shows no remorse or humanity for anything except the pursuit of science. I think he would make an excellent villain in Xorn, despite it being full of them. Due to having no humanity whatsoever, it will be interesting to see how Riot will develop his story in the MMO. There are no limits to this character, and that's what gives him so much potential. I really enjoyed making this video, and I plan to make another exploring the different stories of the MMO, so make sure you subscribe to not miss that. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.